A simple village craft day turns ominous when a frightened woman disappears, and every clue leads deeper into danger. Before the truth surfaces, someone in Carsley will do anything to keep their secrets buried. Where in the world are you listening from tonight? And subscribe so you never miss upcoming mysteries. The spring afternoon had the sort of forced cheerfulness Agatha Raisin always distrusted. Bright sun, crisp air, birds chirping as if paid by the parish council. It was the sort of day when Carsley looked picture postcard perfect, which only made Agatha more determined to show the village she could attend a WI craft demonstration without embarrassing herself. At least, that was the plan. She marched toward the WI hall with a wreath under one arm, glue still tacky on the ribbons. Hodge had attempted to chew it earlier, which hadn't improved matters. The hall buzzed with warm chatter, and the smell of lemon biscuits mingled with damp wool, the natural perfume of village gatherings. Women clustered around trestle tables, all looking annoyingly content. Mrs. Blocksby greeted her with a serene smile. "How lovely you've joined us, Mrs. Raisin. Your wreath looks very expressive." "That's not always a compliment," Agatha muttered, then forced a brittle smile. "Thank you. I stayed up half the night with it." "It shows," Doris Simpson called from across the room. She was polishing a pair of scissors with the solemnity of a surgeon. "It's got a bit of a panicked look about it." "So would you," Agatha shot back, "if you'd been manhandled by a glue gun." The room tittered. Agatha pretended not to hear. She placed her wreath on the display table with the confidence of a woman about to present a masterpiece, though the ribbon sagged like it had lost the will to live. At the front stood the day's demonstrator, Miss Patience Wilberforce, a neat, composed woman in a lavender twinset. Her posture suggested she'd swallowed a knitting needle and felt rather proud of it. She clapped her hands for attention. "Ladies, thank you for these charming contributions," she announced in the voice of someone who found charm exhausting. Agatha folded her arms. She wanted praise today, genuine praise, preferably loud enough for Doris to choke on it. Miss Wilberforce moved from wreath to wreath, cooing at crocheted flowers and embroidered ribbons. "Lovely use of texture, Mrs. Herring. Beautiful balance, Mrs. Jessup. Such imagination, Mrs. Croft." She paused at Agatha's. Her lips pursed. "And this one has a certain desperate quality." The room dissolved into polite, delighted snickering. Agatha felt the heat climb her neck. "It is not desperate," she snapped. "It's modern." "Of course," Miss Wilberforce said soothingly, as one might to an unstable toddler. Agatha glared at her wreath as if betrayal were possible between woman and craft. She vowed to return next month looking fabulous enough to make Miss Wilberforce trip over her own smugness. As the demonstration continued, involving dried lavender, unnecessary doilies, and a lecture on seasonal harmony, Agatha fumed. She tried to imitate the expert flick of Miss Wilberforce's wrist while trimming a stem, but succeeded only in spraying dried petals across the table. Mrs. Blocksby helped her sweep the mess. "Don't be upset, Mrs. Raisin. Patience is particular. She likes things calm." "I'm perfectly calm," Agatha hissed, snapping a twig in half. By the end of the session, the hall smelt strongly of glue and frustration. Women began filing out, discussing biscuits and the perils of moths. Agatha lingered, pretending to tidy her wreath when really she was thinking of creative revenge fantasies involving lavender stems. Miss Wilberforce approached her, lowering her voice. "Mrs. Raisin, a word." Agatha braced herself. "If this is about the wreath, not at all. I simply wanted to say, some people aren't who they seem today." Agatha blinked. "Meaning what?" But Miss Wilberforce glanced over her shoulder, back stiffening. "I can't stay. I shouldn't have said anything." "Why not?" "I must go." Her voice was tremulous, something Agatha hadn't heard earlier. Without another word, she swept toward the exit, leaving Agatha frowning after her. "What was that about?" Agatha murmured. Mrs. Blocksby followed her gaze. "Patience seemed a little strained this afternoon. Perhaps she's tired. Or hiding something." "Mrs. Raisin," Mrs. Blocksby said gently, "not everyone with troubled eyes is concealing a scandal." "In Carsley, don't be ridiculous." Outside, village chatter floated across the green. Agatha stepped into the sunshine, thinking she might head home for a calming cigarette and possibly a calming gin. Before she reached the lane, she caught sight of Miss Wilberforce behind the hall, engaged in an argument with a well-dressed woman. The stranger wore a tailored jacket, long dark hair pinned back, and the expression of someone who'd just lost a fight with her dignity. Agatha edged closer. "You promised," the woman cried. "Please," Miss Wilberforce whispered. "Not here." The stranger's voice cracked. "You said you'd deal with it." "And I'm trying." "Trying?" The woman laughed, brittle as thin glass. "You're terrified." Before Agatha could catch more, the woman turned and strode away, wiping her eyes furiously. Miss Wilberforce pressed a hand to her forehead, then hurried to her car. Moments later, the engine revved and she sped down the lane so fast the tyres spat gravel into the hedgerow. Agatha folded her arms. Nothing intrigued her more than people storming off in tears. She walked back toward the green, her wreath under her arm again, feeling deeply dissatisfied. If she'd had a chance to pry properly, she'd know exactly who the mysterious woman was, why Patience Wilberforce had looked petrified, and what on earth was going on. Instead, she was left with crumbs, literal ones, as a piece of lemon biscuit clung to her sleeve. Doris Simpson intercepted her. "I saw Patience leave in a right state, probably overspent on ribbon." "Not everything is about ribbon, Doris," Agatha snapped, then paused, "though she may have." "Well," Doris said archly, "we all saw how she singled you out." Agatha drew herself upright. "I don't mind constructive criticism." "That wasn't constructive," Doris said. "It was accurate." Agatha considered throwing the wreath at her, but Mrs. Blocksby called out a warm goodbye, which softened her enough to resist assault. She trudged home through Carsley, admiring nothing and resenting everything. The cottages glowed golden in the late sun. Birds chattered. A neighbour pruned roses with the air of a smug angel. Agatha's mood refused to improve. Inside her cottage, Hodge greeted her with an indignant yowl, as if she'd missed 3 appointments with him. She dropped the wreath on the table, which Hodge immediately sat on. "Fine," she muttered. "It's rubbish anyway." She kicked off her shoes and reached for a cigarette. As she lit it, slowly, defiantly, she replayed the strange exchange behind the hall. There had been real fear there, not WI fussiness. Something was wrong, and for once, it wasn't her wreath. The phone rang, the landline's shrill, dated ring. "What now?" she groaned, picking up. "Agatha Raisin." "Agatha, it's Bill." His tone froze her irritation. Calm, yes, but purposeful. "Bill, what is it? I've just endured a craft-based humiliation, so be gentle." "Did you see Miss Patience Wilberforce today?" Agatha straightened. "Yes, why?" A pause long enough to prickle her nerves. "You might need to hear this." Bill's voice dropped. "She's gone missing." Agatha's hand tightened on the receiver. Outside, Carsley's peaceful evening seemed to hold its breath, and for once Agatha didn't have a witty remark. The night settled cold and clear over Carsley, the sort of sharp blue darkness that made every cottage window glow like a small hearth. Agatha Raisin paced her sitting room with the irritated energy of a cat denied supper. Bill Wong had rung only minutes earlier, saying he needed to come over at once. Naturally, he'd refused to explain why. Policemen enjoyed sounding mysterious far too much. She straightened a cushion, then immediately disliked how domestic it looked and shoved it aside again. Hodge watched her from the armchair, tail flicking in vague disapproval. Outside, the lane lay still, save for a stray breeze nudging the hedges. The peace only made Agatha more restless. When the knock finally came, she stormed to the door, ready to deliver a blistering greeting. Bill stood there, shoulders dusted with the faintest scatter of rain spots. Not real rain, just enough to give him the look of a man who'd walked through trouble. "About time," Agatha said. "You made it sound as if the world was ending." Bill stepped inside, stamping his shoes politely on the mat. "I didn't want to say anything on the phone." "Because the wires are tapped. This is Carsley, not Cold War Berlin." He gave her a patient look that suggested he would not rise to the bait. That irritated her further. She led him to the sitting room, where Hodge regarded him with the mild suspicion he reserved for all authority figures. Agatha folded her arms. "Right, explain yourself. And it had better be interesting." Bill hesitated, just long enough to unsettle her. "Patience Wilberforce has gone missing." Agatha's first instinct was disbelief. Miss Wilberforce, the cool lavender lady from the WI, didn't seem capable of disappearing, not without leaving a note apologizing for the inconvenience. "Missing?" Agatha repeated. "People don't go missing in Moreton-in-Marsh. They shop, they garden, They attend daft craft demonstrations. They do not vanish. Her neighbour reported her cottage door standing open. No sign of struggle, but her car's gone. A twinge of unease ran down Agatha's spine. She masked it with indignation. And what does any of this have to do with me? Bill cleared his throat. She left a message on our answering machine. It was time-stamped late this afternoon. Agatha felt her pulse quicken. Well, what did she say? Bill met her eyes. She said, "Something happened today. I trust Agatha Raisin. If anything happens to me," and then the message cuts. Agatha stared at him. Her stomach performed something that might have been a somersault, though she'd never admit to anything so athletic. She reached for a cigarette, lit it with hands she hoped looked steadier than they were, and took a slow, deliberate drag. "Why would she say that?" she demanded. "That's what I'm trying to determine." Agatha bristled. "Oh, don't go all official on me. You must have a theory." "Agatha, I only just got the report, and before you leap in, I need you to promise." "Absolutely not," Bill sighed. "I haven't even said it yet. It's always the same thing. Don't interfere. Leave it to the professionals. Well, tough luck. If she mentioned my name, I'm involved." She may have been confused. She wasn't confused when she criticized my wreath. "This isn't about the wreath." "Everything is about the wreath," Agatha snapped, then flushed at her own absurdity. Hodge blinked at her, which felt like judgment. She lowered her voice. "Look, something was bothering her before she left. She said something odd to me." Bill straightened. "What did she say?" "She murmured that some people aren't who they seem today, and she looked terrified." Bill frowned. "Did she explain?" "No, I tried, but she bolted like a startled deer." Bill rubbed his forehead. "Agatha, you should have told me this earlier." "I was planning to, but the WI meeting broke my will to live." Bill's face softened. "I can imagine." She shot him a look. "Not helping." He moved to the window, peering out at the dark lane. "We've officers at her cottage now. I just thought you should know before rumours start." Agatha bristled at the implication. "I never rely on rumours. That's what Doris Simpson is for." Bill didn't smile. Instead, he said quietly, "Agatha, be careful. If someone frightened her enough to send that message." Agatha felt the weight of his unfinished sentence. She stubbed out her cigarette with more force than necessary. "Don't patronize me. I can handle myself." "I know you can. That's what worries me." Before she could craft a retort sharp enough to leave a mark, Bill added, "Promise me you won't start questioning people tonight." "I absolutely will not," she paused. "Tonight," Bill glared. "Agatha, oh, do shut up. I'll call Charles." Bill threw up his hands. "That's even worse." "Nonsense. Charles has a car and fewer scruples." "And fewer brain cells," Bill muttered. Agatha was already reaching for the phone. She dialed Charles Fraith with the urgency of a woman assembling a rescue team, though she would never call it that. When he finally answered, his voice held the languid drawl of someone who'd been contemplating a glass of claret. "Agatha, my dear, must we speak at this hour?" "A woman is missing, Charles." A small pause. "Is she rich?" "No." "Oh, then what do you want?" "I want your help." "Those are expensive words. And your car. More expensive." "Charles, don't be tedious. Miss Patience Wilberforce from the WI. She's vanished. There's a strange message. Bill is standing here glowering like a disappointed librarian. I need you." Charles sighed grandly. "Fine. I'll come over in the morning." "No, tonight." "Agatha, I'm in my dressing gown." "Bring it with you." "You're impossible," Charles said, but she heard the surrender in his voice. When she hung up, Bill stared at her with resignation. "You're dragging Charles into this? Why?" "Because you told me not to." "Exactly. And because he'll whine and that will distract me from panicking." Bill pinched the bridge of his nose. "Agatha, please don't treat this like a village treasure hunt." She softened slightly. "I know, Bill. I do. I'll be sensible." Hodge gave a short, doubtful chirp, which did nothing to strengthen her claim. Bill prepared to leave, shrugging on his damp jacket. "I'll ring you if anything else comes in. In the meantime, try not to get involved." "I'll try," Agatha lied. He paused at the door. "Agatha?" "Yes?" "She trusted you. That must mean something." For once, Agatha had no ready quip. She watched him walk down the path and disappear into the cold night. A faint thread of unease wound itself around her thoughts. She closed the door and leaned against it, exhaling the breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Hodge hopped onto the windowsill, ears pricked. His tail puffed slightly, a sign of feline displeasure or impending chaos. With Hodge it was always both. Then Hodge hissed. Agatha stiffened. He stared at the window, eyes wide and unblinking. She stepped closer, heart thumping against her ribs. Across the lane stood a car. No lights, no movement, just a dark shape watching her cottage like a patient shadow. Agatha swallowed, pulse quickening. "Well," she whispered to Hodge, "that's not ominous at all." The next morning dawned crisp and blue, the sort of deceptively gentle weather that tried to convince Agatha Raisin the world wasn't plotting against her. A thin frost still clung to the hedges, sparkling smugly. She glared at it on her way down the path. She had slept badly, jolting awake at the memory of Miss Wilberforce's frightened eyes and the shadowy car across the lane. Hodge, curled in a warm heap beside her, had been little comfort. He snored like a disgruntled accordion. Charles Fraith arrived 15 minutes late in his vintage convertible, looking as if early sunlight were a personal insult. He leaned out, hair artfully windswept. "Agatha, darling, do we truly have to do this at such an uncivilized hour?" "It's 9 o'clock, Agatha snapped, climbing in. "Ordinary humans have been up for hours." "Exactly why I avoid ordinary humans." She ignored him, already scanning the lane for the mysterious car. It was gone, either a good sign or a terrible one. They drove through the Cotswolds in a wash of cold blue morning. The fields stretched quiet and still. Birds flitted across hedgerows. Everything looked absurdly peaceful, as if the countryside had decided mysteries were beneath it. "Bill said Mrs. Bloxby would meet us," Agatha said, gripping her coat tighter. "He thinks her cottage might hold clues." "Or knitted potholders," Charles muttered. "Are you sure this woman didn't simply pop off for a spa day?" "She left a message about me on the police answering machine. People don't do that before a spa day." Charles winced. Fair point. Moreton-in-Marsh emerged ahead. Neat cottages, tidy gardens, a high street waking up with the smell of pastry and petrol. Miss Wilberforce's cottage sat at the edge of the village, prim and contained, as if designed to offend Agatha's nerves. The garden was immaculate, daffodils lined up like soldiers, shrubs clipped to within an inch of martyrdom. Agatha scowled. "This is the home of a woman who ironed her envelopes." "That's not a thing," Charles said. "It is for women like her." Bill Wong stood at the gate, clipboard in hand. He looked tired but alert. Mrs. Bloxby waited beside him, wrapped in her soft navy coat, radiating calm authority. Agatha felt both soothed and resentful. "Good morning," Mrs. Bloxby said warmly. "I'm glad you're here, Mrs. Raisin." Agatha preened. Then Bill added, "I told her you'd come anyway." Agatha deflated. "Yes, well, someone has to apply intelligence to this situation." "I'm right here," Bill muttered, unlocking the door. Inside, the cottage smelt faintly of lavender polish and unopened windows. Agatha scanned the room, noticing little personal touches, lace mats, framed watercolours, books stacked neatly, everything tidy and lifeless. "No sign of a struggle," Bill said. "Everything looks untouched." Agatha scanned the neat little sitting room, cushions plumped, a magazine half open, nothing dramatic. She rifled through drawers with growing irritation. She didn't pack anything. "Nothing missing," Bill replied. Mrs. Bloxby knelt near a cabinet. "It feels as if she left in a hurry. Perhaps she was frightened." "She was frightened yesterday at the hall," Agatha said. "She practically whispered a confession at me, then ran for her life." Charles wandered into the sitting room, hands in pockets. "Have you checked under things? Women like this hide secrets beneath doilies." "Not every woman," Mrs. Bloxby said sweetly. "No," Charles conceded. "Only the ones who iron envelopes." Bill blinked. "Why are we talking about envelopes?" Agatha ignored them, crouching near a small writing desk. The top drawer held stationery, the second held household bills, the third stuck stubbornly. Agatha yanked it open. A torn scrap of paper fluttered out. She snatched it up. 3 words in neat handwriting: exhibition, Evesham, valuation. "A clue," she announced triumphantly. Bill took it from her. "Could be shopping." "No one shops for valuation," Agatha said. "This is something." "It might be nothing," Charles added, though he leaned closer. Mrs. Bloxby smiled gently. "It may be helpful if we keep open minds. Mrs. Wilberforce was methodical. She wouldn't scribble words without purpose." Agatha beamed at her ally. Exactly. She continued her hunt, determined to find something else. While reaching beneath the sofa, her hand hit a jagged edge. She pulled out a smashed photo frame, glass cracked in violent angles. Inside was a photograph of Miss Wilberforce standing beside a distinguished silver-haired man. They appeared close, closer than Agatha would have expected from Miss Lavender Twinset. "Who's this?" she asked. Bill frowned. "No idea." Charles raised his eyebrows. "Quite the handsome fellow. Perhaps our missing lady had an admirer." Agatha bristled. She wouldn't pick someone that handsome. "Why?" Charles asked. "Because it's bad for the nerves." Mrs. Blocksby examined the frame. "It looks as though it fell, or was thrown." "Thrown," Agatha corrected, feeling triumph. "She had a row with him." "You don't know that," Bill said. "I can sense these things." Before Bill could argue, a thin voice called from the open doorway. "Are you all trampling about? Because you shouldn't. It upsets the vibrations." A tiny, elderly man shuffled into the hall. He wore a cardigan so stretched it looked like it had insulted him and been punished. His watery blue eyes sparkled with nosiness. "Mr. Pennington," Bill sighed. "Neighbour." "That's right," Mr. Pennington said proudly. "I saw everything. Her secret fiancé came over 2 nights ago." Agatha perked up. "Fiancé?" "Secret fiancé," Mr. Pennington corrected. "Looked like trouble. Shifty eyes. Probably a criminal mastermind." "What did he look like?" Agatha pressed. Mr. Pennington paused. "Tallish, or shortish. Hair, possibly a beard. Could have been clean-shaven." Agatha stared. "That's 90% useless." 90% imagination, Bill murmured. Mr. Pennington sniffed. "I know what I know." And she left with him, mark my words. "Her car's missing," Bill said. "If you saw her leave, what was she driving?" "Could have been red," Mr. Pennington mused, "or grey." "Thank you," Agatha said tightly. "You've been a revelation." He left, muttering something about psychic vibrations. Agatha shut the door on him. "Secret fiancé, honestly." "It's possible," Charles said. "It's nonsense," Agatha snapped. But jealousy prickled. Some middle-aged woman having a dramatic secret romance felt personally offensive. Mrs. Blocksby touched her arm. Mrs. Wilberforce kept to herself. She may have had private matters we didn't see. Agatha glanced between Mrs. Blocksby and Charles as they exchanged thoughtful looks. She hated them when they agreed. "Stop theorizing without me." "We're not," Charles protested, though he looked guilty. Agatha stormed outside for air. The morning sun brightened, turning frost to glitter. She had barely reached the path when she heard a rustle by the daffodils. Hodge sat proudly beside an overturned plant pot, tail flicking like a metronome. Agatha gasped. "Hodge, how did you get here?" Charles appeared behind her, sheepish. "He may have climbed into the back seat. I thought he was a blanket." Hodge meowed smugly. Agatha crouched beside the pot. Beneath it lay a small, crushed brooch, metal bent, decoration ruined. She picked it up carefully. The initials engraved on it had been scratched off, as if someone wanted to erase identity. A chill crept across her shoulders. "Someone hid this." Mrs. Blocksby knelt beside her. "Poor thing, it's been damaged deliberately." "A brooch with the initials removed," Agatha murmured. "That says something." "It says vandalism," Charles offered. "It says clue," Agatha corrected firmly. Behind them, Bill's car pulled up sharply. He climbed out, face tense. "We've found her car," he said. Agatha rose. "Where?" "Near Evesham." He hesitated, jaw tightening. "And?" Agatha demanded. Bill met her eyes. "There's blood on the driver's seat." Agatha felt the morning's brightness dull around her. Hodge pressed against her leg, warm and steady. The garden, so neat and disciplined moments before, seemed suddenly cold. "Right," she whispered. "Then we'd better get moving." And Carsley's quiet day shifted again, tilting towards something darker and far more dangerous. The afternoon settled warm and breezy over Evesham, all soft sunshine and drifting clouds. Agatha Raisin found it irritatingly pleasant. Sunshine always made her feel obliged to be cheerful, which was intolerable given the circumstances. Charles Fraith drove with one hand on the wheel and the other lazily draped over the door, humming as if this were a countryside jaunt rather than the pursuit of a missing WI demonstrator. "Do stop looking so relaxed," Agatha snapped. "A woman may be in danger." Agatha, my dear, I become tense only when absolutely required. It's a matter of survival. Your survival or mine? Both, ideally. They approached the Evesham Town Hall, where banners proclaimed the annual Antiques and Collectibles exhibition. Cars clustered outside in chaotic rows. People milled about with the determined enthusiasm of bargain hunters convinced treasure lay under the next dusty cloth. Agatha marched in first, Charles trailing like a weary chaperone. Inside, the hall buzzed with middle-class ambition. Tables groaned under the weight of china sets, silver spoons, military medals, and a disturbing number of porcelain figurines. The air smelt of old paper, bragging rights, and disinfectant. Agatha scanned the room with a sharpened eye. If Miss Patience Wilberforce had been here recently, someone would remember her. Women of her type were memorable. Lavender twin sets, stiff smiles, opinions sharpened like knives. Charles gestured toward a stall laden with jewellery. Shall we start with the obvious? Brooches. Agatha nodded, though she privately disliked him being right. They approached a plump dealer in a floral blouse, her expression sharp enough to cut glass. "Excuse me," Agatha began. "We're looking for information about a brooch evaluated here recently. Regency piece. Rather valuable." The woman appraised Agatha with the disdain of one who disliked being interrupted. "And who might you be?" "Agatha Raisin," Agatha said grandly. "Private investigator." "She's not," Charles murmured. Agatha elbowed him. "We're helping the police." "Oh," the woman said, suddenly interested. "That brooch. Yes, I saw it. Lovely thing. Should have been mine first, but Miss Wilberforce." "So she was here," Agatha cut in. "Of course. Swooped in all prim and proper, acting as if she owned the place. Took one of my customers, too." Agatha raised a brow. "She stole your customer?" "Poached, more like. Told him I overpriced everything. Me! As if I'd do such a thing." Charles coughed politely. "Did you speak with her at length?" "Wouldn't call it speaking. More like sparring. She was after a valuation. Spoke to the appraiser over there. Gregory Flint's his name. Slimy man. The type who smiles for practice." Red herring number 1, Agatha noted, jealous rival. Motivated by professional bitterness, inflated ego, and probably too many porcelain figurines. "Did she seem nervous?" Agatha asked. "She seemed like she'd eaten lemon rind for breakfast," the woman replied. "Tense. Looking over her shoulder a lot. Strange business." Agatha thanked her, somewhat grudgingly, and moved on. Charles trailed behind, eyeing displays with mild curiosity. "She clearly rubbed people the wrong way," he whispered. "Everyone rubs people the wrong way if they're good at something," Agatha said, "or at least determined." "Is that your life philosophy?" "It works." They approached the appraisal stand, where a pompous man in a tweed jacket lectured a small crowd about authenticity. He held a magnifying glass like a sacred relic. "Ladies and gentlemen," he declared, "forgeries are everywhere. Clever ones, devious ones. Even your own grandmother's brooch might be a lie." Agatha rolled her eyes. "We've found red herring number 2, Charles smirked. "He certainly looks herring-flavoured." When the crowd dispersed, Agatha pounced. "Excuse me, we're inquiring about a Regency brooch evaluated here recently. Miss Patience Wilberforce." The man puffed up like a pigeon in mating season. "Ah, yes. Interesting case. Very interesting. She brought in a piece of questionable background." "Questionable?" Agatha asked. "Possibly forged," he said grandly. "These things happen. People think Granny Beecham's trinket is worth a fortune when it's really cheap rubbish." Agatha folded her arms. "Was it rubbish?" "Well," he hesitated. "Not entirely. It was ambiguous." "Meaning, you have no idea," Charles said brightly. The man bristled. "I know plenty." "You know nothing helpful," Agatha snapped. "Did she meet anyone here?" "Everyone meets people here." "A man named Gregory Flint?" The lecturer's expression twitched. "Yes, Flint was here. Smarmy fellow. Good at charming people into buying overpriced tat." Agatha leaned in. "Did Miss Wilberforce argue with him?" "Perhaps. I can't recall. I was busy enlightening visitors." Translating, "Yes, but I refuse to gossip," Charles whispered. Agatha sniffed and marched away before the man could feign importance again. "We're getting nowhere," Charles said. "You need to look more intimidating." "I am intimidating." "Only when holding scissors." Agatha ignored him and strode toward a small folding table piled high with catalogues. The elderly man behind it gave her a brisk nod. "Looking for something particular?" "Miss Wilberforce's valuation entry," Agatha said. "She was here yesterday." The man rummaged through a ledger, flipping pages with ink-stained fingers. "Here, Patience Wilberforce, Regency brooch." He tapped a line with surprising force. "This one." Agatha leaned in. The listed valuation made her blink. The number shimmered with staggering zeros. "Good grief," Charles whispered. "That's a fortune." Agatha's pulse quickened. This was no ordinary trinket. The smashed photograph, the hidden brooch with scratched initials, the terrified whisper behind the W.I. Hall, all tugged in the same direction. "Was the brooch genuine?" she asked. The man scratched his chin. "Oh, yes, no doubt. But she didn't leave it here. Took it back with her." Agatha's breath caught. Then why bring the cheap imitation to her cottage? Charles frowned. Imitation? Agatha explained the crushed brooch they'd found under the overturned pot. The man listened thoughtfully. "Could have been an attempted swap," he said. "Crooks who trade antiques sometimes plant a fake. Confuse the owner." "Was Flint involved?" Agatha asked. The man hesitated. "He might have had words with her." "Meaning?" "They argued, near the stairwell. I didn't hear details, something about value, something about evidence." Agatha's eyes narrowed. "Evidence." Charles looked grim. "We need to find Flint." Before Agatha could respond, she tripped over a box of catalogues stacked beside the table. She flailed, arms windmilling wildly, and landed in a heap that scattered pamphlets like startled pigeons. A dozen people turned to stare. Charles covered his face. "Agatha, please." "This was your fault," she hissed. "Your elbow pushed me." "I was meters away." "Your aura, then." The catalogue man cleared his throat. "Do you need help up?" "Absolutely not," Agatha snapped, scrambling upright with whatever dignity remained. She dusted off her coat, ignoring Charles's barely suppressed laughter. "Right," she muttered. "Where's this Flint?" They questioned 3 dealers before locating a slim, well-dressed man with slicked hair and a smile polished to a mirror sheen. Gregory Flint leaned against a display case filled with rings and brooches, chatting amiably with a nervous-looking couple. Agatha pulled Charles aside. "That's him. He looks like someone who'd sell his own grandmother if she came with a valuation receipt." "Let me try talking," Charles said. "I speak fluent slime." But before he could approach, Flint excused himself from the couple and hurried toward the exit. Agatha shot after him, weaving between tables with surprising speed. Charles followed with the resignation of a man used to chasing trouble. They caught up with Flint near the side doors. Agatha planted herself firmly in his path. "Gregory Flint?" He stopped, startled. Then his smile returned, bright as a counterfeit coin. "Yes? How may I help you?" "Miss Wilberforce," Agatha said. "You argued with her yesterday." His smile flickered. "I wouldn't say argued. A misunderstanding." "What kind of misunderstanding?" "A professional disagreement. She didn't appreciate my opinion." "Which was?" "That her brooch might not be what she thought." Lie, Agatha thought. A practiced, elegant lie. "Where were you last night?" Charles asked blandly. Flint tensed. "Are you accusing me of something?" "We're asking," Agatha said. "Well, don't. I was at home, alone." Convenient, Agatha thought. Before she could press further, Flint excused himself and vanished into the crowd with slippery efficiency. "He's hiding something," she muttered. "He's hiding everything," Charles replied. They stepped outside into the bright afternoon. A soft breeze lifted Agatha's hair. She felt both energized and uneasy. "We'll need to tell Bill," Charles said. "He won't like Flint." "He won't like you either," Agatha said. "But we all cope." Charles rolled his eyes and headed for the car park. He had barely reached the convertible when he froze, his face drained of color. "Agatha," he called, voice thin, "come here, now." She hurried over, heart thumping. Charles pointed at his front tires. Both were slashed. Clean cuts. Deliberate. Agatha stared, pulse quickening. "Someone doesn't want us here," Charles whispered. Agatha swallowed hard. "Good," she said grimly, "because now I want them even more." The morning leaned toward overcast, the sky a pale grey quilt with just enough drizzle to annoy anyone with naturally frizzy hair. Agatha Raisin took one look at the weather and decided it suited her mood perfectly. Charles Fraith stood beside her at the Mercester pavement, collar up, pretending the drizzle was refreshing. It made Agatha want to shove him into a puddle. Gregory Flint's office occupied the top floor of a converted mill building, all exposed beams, earnest plants, and posters boasting trustworthiness. Agatha found that detail suspicious. In her experience, anyone who advertised honesty probably stored bodies in their cupboard. Bill Wong met them at the front door, wearing his usual expression of mild dread in Agatha's presence. "Please," he murmured, as they climbed the stairs, "try not to antagonize him." "I don't antagonize people," Agatha said. "You breathe and they feel antagonized," Charles added, earning himself a glare. The receptionist, a nervous young woman with bitten nails, led them toward the inner office. "Mr. Flint will be with you shortly," she said, voice trembling. "Would you like tea?" "We'll manage," Agatha replied, scanning the waiting room. The decor was sleek, clever, and designed to impress people who didn't understand murky antiques. A glass cabinet displayed jewellery that might have been valuable, but Agatha suspected was mostly ego. The door opened. Gregory Flint emerged with the polished charm of a man who practiced smiling in mirrors. He wore an expensive suit and a grin he believed irresistible. Agatha disliked him instantly, which she admitted was an excellent start. "Ms. Raisin," he said cheerfully. "Mr. Fraith, Sergeant Wong, how wonderful to see you." "I doubt that very much," Agatha said crisply. "We have questions." "Of course you do," Flint replied, ushering them in. "Everyone does these days. It's the season for curiosity." His office was annoyingly tasteful. Pale walls, dark desk, matching chairs placed with surgical precision. Agatha sat down, refusing to look impressed. Charles lounged beside her like a man in a gentleman's club. Bill took the seat nearest the door, already bracing for disaster. Flint folded his hands. "So, this is about Miss Patience Wilberforce." "You knew she was missing," Agatha said sharply. "News travels," Flint said with an elegant shrug. "Unfortunate business. She owed me money." "Money?" Agatha repeated. "For a valuation arrangement," Flint explained. "I advanced funds for an item she believed valuable. Standard practice." Bill frowned. "We haven't seen any documentation." "It was informal," Agatha snorted. "Meaning fictional." Flint laughed lightly. "You're direct, Miss Raisin. Refreshing, really." "Yes, I'm sure honesty terrifies you," Agatha said. Bill pinched the bridge of his nose. Charles smothered a smile. "Tell us about the brooch," Agatha said. Flint leaned back. "Ah, the famous brooch. Regency era. Genuine. Extremely valuable." Agatha shot upright. "So you admit it was real?" "I never denied it." "You implied doubt yesterday," Charles said. Flint waved a hand. "I imply things frequently. It keeps conversations lively." Agatha bristled. "You argued with her." No, Flint said. "A misunderstanding. She felt I undervalued the piece. She had sentimental attachment." "She had fear," Agatha corrected. "Real fear. She left you and went straight to the W.I. Hall." Flint's smile flickered. "People feel all sorts of things. Doesn't make them true." "You also argued with her behind that same hall," Agatha pressed. "Why lie about that?" "I didn't," Flint said calmly. "I wasn't there." "Someone saw you," Agatha lied. Flint didn't flinch. People see what they want. He was too smooth, too confident, a man who'd perfected deceit like a stagecraft. Agatha leaned nearer. "Where's the brooch now?" "No idea," Flint said brightly. "She left with it. She refused to store it here." Another lie. Agatha could feel it like static in the air. Behind Flint's desk, the receptionist, now sorting files, shot Agatha a quick look. Her eyes widened meaningfully. As she walked past, she let a small slip of paper fall onto Agatha's knee. Agatha covered it with her hand, waiting until Flint turned away to admire his own shelves. She opened it under the desk. Ask about his private collection. Her pulse ticked higher. "Mr. Flint," Agatha said casually, "you wouldn't happen to have a private collection, would you?" His expression hardened, so quickly it was almost invisible. Almost. "Many dealers have personal items," Flint said lightly. "Old habits." "Personal items worth hiding?" Agatha asked. "You seem fascinated by me." Flint smiled. "I can see why." Bill groaned. Charles whispered, "He really believes that." Agatha ignored them and pressed further. "Did Miss Wilberforce know about it?" "That's none of your concern." "Then it definitely is," Agatha said. "Agatha," Bill began, I'm not finished, Agatha snapped. She stood, trying to loom. Let me be clear, Mr. Flint. You're hiding things, you know it, I know it. And when the police dig deeper— She braced her hands on his desk for emphasis. A loud crackle burst through the room. Then her own voice boomed from the hallway intercom. Slippery men with pretty smiles. Agatha froze in horror. Who probably charm widows while stealing their silver. Bill dropped his head into his hands. And think women fall for that oily grin of yours. Well, think again. Flint's eyebrows shot upward into the realm of heavenly disbelief. Agatha snatched her hand from the intercom button as if scalded. Silence followed, except for Charles's strangled attempt not to laugh. I see, Flint said softly. How very illuminating. Agatha flushed from collar to forehead. She cleared her throat. The button was in the wrong place. Yes, Charles whispered, right under your hand. Bill finally stood. I think we're done here. Flint inclined his head. I'll be sure to remember this visit. Agatha marched out without looking at him, her dignity trailing behind her like a wounded soldier. In the corridor, Charles burst into laughter. Agatha, that was spectacular. Shut up, she muttered, stomping toward the stairwell. You insulted him to the entire building. Shut up. Even Bill couldn't rescue you, Charles added. Bill followed them, sighing. Agatha, he has an alibi. The neighbour confirmed he was home last night. The neighbour, Agatha said scornfully, is probably blind. No, Bill said. She's a retired nurse with binoculars. Agatha groaned. She hated when alibis were airtight. He's still lying, she insisted. Perhaps, Bill admitted, but lying isn't a crime. It should be, Agatha muttered. They stepped outside into the damp, cool air. The drizzle had softened to a mist that hovered like gossip. Charles shook off his umbrella. What now? We watch him, Agatha said. We wait. Bill gave her a stern look. Do not follow him. Do not break into anything. Do not interrogate strangers. I never do those things, Agatha lied. You always do those things, Bill corrected. Agatha turned away, humming dismissively. By late evening she returned to Carsley exhausted, cross, and deeply annoyed that Flint had slipped away from her question so easily. She walked up the path to her cottage, fumbling for her keys. Hodge watched from the window, tail twitching with imperious expectation. Agatha unlocked the door, stepped inside, and froze. Cold air drifted through the kitchen. A breeze moved the curtains. The window was open, not fully, but enough to unsettle her. She approached slowly. The latch was scraped. Metal pry marks. Someone had forced it. Her breath hitched. Then she saw it on the counter. A brooch. Not the crushed imitation from Morton in Marsh. The real one. Beautiful, gleaming, unmistakably valuable, and placed in the centre of her kitchen like a calling card. Agatha leaned closer, heart hammering. Someone had been inside her home. Someone who wanted her attention. Someone who knew she had already begun digging. She whispered into the stillness. Well, that's unnerving. Hodge meowed behind her, low and uneasy. Agatha straightened, spine tightening with a mix of fear and fury. Message received, she murmured, and you've picked the wrong woman. Morning broke over Carsley in a crisp, frosty shimmer, the kind that left the hedgerows glittering like sugared fruit. Agatha Raisin stood at her front window with a mug of too-strong tea, staring at the innocent sparkle and feeling thoroughly unconvinced by nature's attempts at charm. Somewhere out there lurked someone who broke into her kitchen, left a priceless brooch on her counter, and possibly knew where Miss Patience Wilberforce had gone. Hodge padded into the sitting room, tail high, clearly demanding breakfast and attention in that order. Agatha sighed, set down her tea and opened a tin. She envied his simplicity. All Hodge required was food, comfort, and the occasional chance to judge her. Bill, Charles, and Mrs. Bloxby arrived within minutes of one another, each wearing the expression of someone bracing for Agatha at full volume. She ushered them into the kitchen with dramatic urgency. There, Agatha declared, pointing at the brooch on the counter as if it might dance off. Someone broke into my home last night. My window, my kitchen, my sanctuary. You don't even cook, Charles muttered, bending closer to inspect the brooch. Agatha ignored him. That is the real Regency brooch Miss Wilberforce brought to Evesham, the one Flint pretended wasn't valuable. Mrs. Bloxby leaned forward, hands clasped. It's beautiful, Mrs. Raisin. So much finer than the damaged one you found yesterday." "Two brooches, then," Bill murmured. "A genuine one and a forgery." "And someone wants us to know that," Agatha said, "or wants to frighten me personally." "You terrify most people back," Charles added. Bill lifted the brooch carefully into his palm. It caught the sunlight, scattering it in sharp, bright flashes. "This is exquisite workmanship. If Miss Wilberforce had this, then the smashed imitation at her cottage must have been planted." Agatha folded her arms. Flint must have tried to swap them, or someone else did. Mrs. Bloxby picked up the smashed photograph from the table. "We haven't talked enough about this. Poor Patience must have kept this hidden for a reason." Agatha peered over. The cracked glass revealed the silver-haired stranger again, smiling faintly beside Miss Wilberforce. His distinguished posture irritated Agatha on sight. He had that aristocratic stiffness that suggested he expected servants to applaud when he entered a room. "We need to identify him," Agatha said. "Already done, I believe," Mrs. Bloxby replied gently. "I recognized him last night. That is Sir Lionel Harcourt." Charles blinked. "Good Lord! Harcourt? He's still alive?" Mrs. Bloxby nodded. "His family estate is near Mercester. He used to attend our fundraising dinners, always very polite and rather anxious." "Anxious?" Agatha repeated. "He looks smug." "Smug people can be frightened too," Mrs. Bloxby said. Bill tapped the photo frame. "Sir Lionel was questioned years ago about selling forged Regency jewellery." Agatha lit up, figuratively for once. "Oh, that's delicious. A disgraced aristocrat, a frightened WI demonstrator, and two nearly identical brooches." Charles crossed his arms. "We don't know he's disgraced. The papers exaggerated everything. Something about a dodgy necklace and an embarrassingly public auction." "Even better," Agatha said. "It means he has a motive for secrecy." Bill pulled out his notebook. "I'll arrange for us to visit him. But Agatha, please, don't interfere," she finished. Yes, I've read the script." "It's not a script," Bill muttered. "It is," Charles said. "You say it every case." Mrs. Bloxby poured tea from her thermos, the warm scent softening the room. "Perhaps Sir Lionel can give us clarity about Miss Wilberforce's fears." Agatha sipped gratefully. "Then we'd better go before someone else gets to him first." Sir Lionel Harcourt's estate sat beyond Mercester, a grand manor gone threadbare with age. Ivy strangled the stone walls. The drive was littered with fallen branches, as if nature had given up tidying. Agatha eyed it all with displeasure. "This place screams guilty conscience," she said. "It screams lack of funds," Charles corrected. "Aristocratic decay, very fashionable in the 70s. Bill rang the bell. A shrill chime echoed faintly inside. Eventually a nurse opened the door, brisk, no nonsense, and unimpressed by visitors. "Sir Lionel is unwell," she said. "So are we," Agatha replied. "Emotionally, but we come anyway." Bill flashed his badge. The nurse sighed and stepped aside. "Fine, but he's frail. Don't upset him." "We'll be gentle," Mrs. Bloxby promised. Agatha made no such promise. Sir Lionel reclined in a faded armchair by the window, blanket over his knees, expression wary. His silver hair, though thinning, still carried a hint of former elegance. When he spotted them, fear flickered. Genuine, not theatrical. "Please," he said, voice trembling. "I've told the police everything already." "We're not here about that," Agatha said. "We're here about Miss Patience Wilberforce." His eyes tightened. "Has something happened?" "She's missing," Bill said gently. "We found evidence she contacted you." Sir Lionel's hands shook. "I told her not to involve me. I refused." "Refused what?" Agatha asked. "She brought me a brooch. That brooch." He nodded at the one in Bill's pocket. "She'd discovered something dangerous. She wanted me to authenticate it, but I have no desire to return to that world." Agatha leaned forward. "What world?" Sir Lionel swallowed. "The world of dishonest dealers, of forged jewellery, of accusations. I was once accused of selling Regency fakes. I wasn't guilty, but I didn't prove myself innocent either. Patience knew that." "So she trusted you to recognize another forgery," Charles said. Sir Lionel nodded. "She said someone mixed up two brooches, one worth a fortune, one worth nothing, and that she'd seen evidence that would ruin someone." "Who?" Agatha asked sharply, his mouth pressed into a thin line. She refused to say. She looked frightened, said she didn't want to pull me into danger. She only asked me to confirm the real brooch if she returned. Returned from where? Agatha pressed. She didn't say, he whispered, only that she feared she was being watched. Agatha exchanged a look with Bill. You didn't tell anyone. I'm old, Sir Lionel said weakly, and ashamed. I didn't want trouble. I simply begged her to leave me out of it. And she left? Mrs. Blocksby asked softly. Yes, in tears. For a moment, sympathetic silence filled the room. Even Agatha paused, her irritation briefly overshadowed by unease. Then Bill asked in his calm, careful tone, Sir Lionel, where were you the last 2 days? The nurse answered from the doorway. In bed. Fever. I've been with him constantly. Agatha groaned inwardly. So he's innocent. I beg your pardon, Sir Lionel sputtered. I mean not guilty, she said. Oh, never mind. Charles pulled her aside. He's telling the truth. Look at him. He's terrified. Agatha scowled. Terrified men can still be useful. Mrs. Blocksby approached Sir Lionel with gentle warmth. Sir, is there anything else Patience told you? Anything at all? His hand moved to his throat, a nervous habit. She said something strange, that the second brooch was the key, but I don't know what she meant. Second brooch, Agatha repeated, so she knew someone had forged one. Yes, he whispered, and she thought she knew who. Who? Agatha snapped. He shook his head. She wouldn't tell me. Typical, Agatha muttered. People always withhold the crucial detail, then disappear. It's inconsiderate. Bill sighed. Agatha. But Sir Lionel lifted a trembling finger. If she's dead, he whispered, voice cracking, it's because she found out about that second brooch. Agatha felt a cold ripple beneath her ribs. Outside, sunshine broke through the frosty morning, scattering warm light across the decaying manor. It looked wrong, brightness over fear. Mrs. Blocksby placed a comforting hand on Sir Lionel's shoulder. Thank you. You've been braver than you believe. As they stepped back outside, the air crisp and bright again, Charles exhaled heavily. Well, that was depressing. It was informative, Agatha corrected, and worrying. Bill tucked the real brooch safely away. We need to double-check every dealer connected to Miss Wilberforce. And Flint, Agatha added. Yes, Bill replied, but remember, he has an alibi. So do murderers, Agatha said darkly. She walked ahead, coat whipping in the breeze, Hodge's fur still clinging to her jumper. The morning felt both sharp and promising. They were closer now, to what she didn't know, but it tingled behind her ribs. She paused at the gate, glancing back at the gloomy manor. A second brooch, a frightened woman, a disappearing act, and someone polished, charming and slippery, who hated being exposed. Well, she murmured to herself, that narrows it down. Hodge, left at home but never forgotten, would have agreed. The next morning arrived warmer, carrying a soft, almost apologetic breeze across Carsley. Agatha Raisin disliked apologetic weather. It suggested the universe felt guilty about something, and guilt always meant complications. She stood by her cottage gate, tapping her foot as Bill Wong's police car pulled up. Charles Fraith followed behind in a borrowed hatchback, his beloved convertible still wounded from yesterday's tire assassination. Morning, Bill said, stepping out. He looked unusually cheerful. Agatha distrusted it instantly. Why are you smiling? She demanded. Because it's warm, Bill said, and because today might give us actual answers. Or more lies, Agatha muttered. Charles shut his car door with aristocratic offence. This vehicle is beneath me, he grumbled. The seat smells of despair. Good, Agatha said. It suits you. Bill opened his notebook. We're headed back to Evesham. The exhibition appraiser agreed to speak again. He claims he remembered something important. They always remember something important once the police threaten paperwork, Agatha said. Or when you threaten them, Charles added. Agatha sniffed. My threats are elegant. Evesham bustled with weekend energy. The sun played across the rooftops, glinting on windows. Crowds wandered between cafes, charity shops and the high street. The Antiques Exhibition Hall looked less frantic today, but still hosted a determined flow of treasure hunters. Inside, the atmosphere felt thicker, more tension under the surface, more whispering. Agatha loved it. Secrets fermented beautifully in places like this. The appraiser spotted them at once. He hurried over, fussing with his tweed cuffs. "Ah, Sergeant Wong, Ms. Raisin. Terrible business, all of it. I recalled something you might find enlightening." Agatha folded her arms. "It had better be." "Miss Wilberforce came to me with a brooch yesterday," he said. "Not the valuable one, the cheap one." Bill frowned. "The forgery?" "Yes. She said she wanted a quick confirmation because she had another brooch, a better one, and needed to compare the workmanship. I assumed she meant a family heirloom." Agatha leaned in. "She had both brooches?" "She hinted at it," the man said. "Said she didn't want anyone else to see the real one until she had proof." Charles crossed his arms. "Proof of what?" "Of fraud," the appraiser whispered, almost delighted by the drama. "Said some dealers were not what they seemed." Agatha exchanged a sharp look with Bill. This matched the fear they'd seen in Miss Wilberforce's eyes. "Did she speak to anyone else?" Agatha pressed. "Yes, Gregory Flint. She seemed distressed. He pocketed something after she left, though I didn't see what." Bill scribbled furiously. Agatha felt a spark ignite behind her ribs. If Flint had the second brooch, or the evidence about it, then his earlier lies weren't just charming nonsense. They were deliberate cover. "What did he pocket?" she asked. "Small, shiny. Could have been anything." "Or everything," Agatha muttered. They moved deeper into the hall, weaving between displays. Dealers greeted Bill with nervous smiles, Charles with disdain, and Agatha with wary recognition. A flamboyant older woman in a peacock scarf waved them over. "Are you the people looking into Patience Wilberforce?" "Yes," Agatha said. "I knew this would happen," the woman whispered. "She was planning to run off with Sir Lionel Harcourt, you know." Agatha stared. "Excuse me?" "Oh, yes," the woman went on. "Secret romance, quite the scandal." Charles pinched the bridge of his nose. "Where do people get these ideas?" "The vibrations told me," the woman said. Bill whispered, "Red herring number 57. Agatha snapped. "She wasn't planning to run off with anyone. Sir Lionel can barely walk to the postbox." The woman huffed and returned to her trinkets, apparently offended by reality. "Hopeless," Agatha muttered. "Village gossip is bad enough. This is worse. It's like gossip that's been left out in the sun." They continued toward a jewellery stall where a tall young collector examined brooches through a magnifying glass. She had glossy hair, long legs, and the kind of elegant posture Agatha instinctively resented. Charles brightened. "Good morning," he said smoothly. Agatha's jealousy snapped awake like a guard dog. "Stop smiling like that," she hissed. "Like what?" Charles whispered back. "Like a man whose brain has evaporated." Bill fought a laugh. The collector looked up. "Can I help you?" "Yes," Agatha said sharply. "Did you see Miss Wilberforce here yesterday?" "Of course," the woman replied. "Lovely brooch she had. Very fine." She showed it to Flint. "Which brooch?" Agatha asked. "The valuable one," she said. "She only showed me a glimpse. Magnificent work." "Did Flint handle it?" Bill asked. "He reached toward it," the collector said, "but she pulled it away quickly, looked absolutely terrified of him." Agatha felt her heartbeat quicken. Terrified of Flint, terrified of exposure, terrified enough to run, hide, or, God forbid, vanish. "Did you hear what they said?" she pressed. "Only fragments. Something about authenticity, and something about switching pieces." Agatha swallowed hard. Switching pieces, brooch swap, evidence of forgery, danger. She stepped closer. "Did she look like a woman planning to run off with Sir Lionel?" The collector blinked. "Sir Lionel? He's ancient." "Thank you," Agatha said loudly, shooting the peacock scarf woman a triumphant look even though she wasn't present. Charles cleared his throat. "Anything else you remember?" "Just that Flint looked satisfied when she left," the collector said, as if he already had what he wanted. Agatha's nerves prickled. Flint had pocketed something yesterday, something shiny, something valuable, something worth slashing Charles's tires over. Bill received a call from the forensic team while they stood in the middle of the hall. He listened, nodded, frowned, then hung up. Agatha immediately closed in. "Well?" "There wasn't enough blood in her car to prove injury," Bill said. Agatha's breath hitched. "She might still be alive," Bill added. Agatha's knees softened, with relief, with dread, with renewed fury. "Then we need to move faster." "We are moving faster," Bill protested. "Not fast enough," Agatha said, marching ahead. Charles caught up. "Agatha, don't do anything reckless." "I don't do reckless," she said. You do nothing but reckless." "Shut up." They continued through the stalls until Agatha spotted a posh elderly man examining a pocket watch. He wore a crisp three-piece suit and monocle, a monocle as if he'd stepped out of an Edwardian postcard. Perfect witness material, she decided. She approached. "Excuse me, can I ask you something?" He turned and gave her a slow, indulgent smile. "My dear lady, you may ask me anything." Agatha blinked. "Right, did you—" "I must say," he interrupted, "it is rare to find such mature charm at these events." Charles nearly choked. Bill looked ready to dissolve. Agatha's jaw twitched. "I'm not flirting," she snapped. "I'm questioning you." "Of course you are," the man said knowingly. "We can pretend, if you like." Agatha's nostrils flared. "Did you or did you not see Gregory Flint yesterday?" "Ah, the rogue," the man said. "Pocketed something shiny, yes. I assumed it belonged to him. He was in quite a hurry." Agatha leaned in. "What did he take?" "Something from his stall. Couldn't see properly, but he looked very pleased." Charles murmured, "Suspicious." "Suspicious men often think they're irresistible," Agatha said loudly, glaring at the monocled man. "Oh, do flatter me," he replied. Agatha stalked off, cheeks hot. Charles was laughing helplessly. "You do attract the most interesting admirers," he said. "Shut up!" Bill cleared his throat. "We should leave. We've got enough for now." Agatha paused, scanning the hall once more. The clues swirled through her mind. 2 brooches, one real and one fake. Flint pocketing something, Miss Wilberforce terrified, Sir Lionel's warning, the smashed photo, the forged initials on the crushed brooch. Something here made sense, but not yet. By late afternoon they returned to Carsley. Agatha felt restless, her brain buzzing, her nerves stretched taut. The warm breeze followed them into the village, carrying the scent of fresh bread from the bakery and faint laughter from the Red Lion. As she walked home, she could feel eyes on her. Not Flint's, someone else's. Someone watching from the corners of things. She entered her cottage, dumped her coat on a chair and fed Hodge, who accepted food with the indifference of royalty. The phone rang just as she reached for the kettle. "What now?" she muttered, snatching the receiver. "Agatha Raisin." "Agatha, love," came Doris Simpson's bright, gossip-soaked voice. "There's a gentleman here for you." Agatha stiffened. "A gentleman?" "Yes. Says his name is Gregory Flint, and he refuses to leave." Agatha froze, heart clawing up her throat. Flint, at her home, waiting. "Right," she whispered. "Keep him talking, Doris. I'm coming." Hodge yowled from the table, sensing tension. Agatha grabbed her bag, squared her shoulders, and stepped back into the warm, pleasant Carsley afternoon, a village blissfully unaware that danger had just knocked politely on the neighbour's door, and refused to leave. The afternoon weather couldn't decide what it wanted to be. One moment, a blustery wind chased leaves down the Carsley lanes. The next, soft sunshine broke through the clouds as if apologizing for the fuss. Agatha Raisin charged through this inconsistent glory, with her coat flapping behind her and her handbag banging against her hip like an irritable companion. Doris Simpson's warning still rang in her ears. Gregory Flint, at her cottage. Uninvited. Standing there like a fox who'd read somewhere that hens enjoyed conversation. Agatha rounded the last bend and froze. Flint sat calmly on her garden bench, one ankle crossed over the other, looking as if he owned the blasted village. He rose when he saw her, offering that polished, irritating smile he used like a shield. "Miss Raisin," he said, "I was beginning to think you'd run away." "Run away?" Agatha snapped. "This is my cottage, my garden, my seat. You're the one trespassing." "Your neighbour let me wait," Flint said, nodding toward Doris Simpson's window. Doris watched behind the curtain, eyes glowing with gossiping hope. Agatha planted her hands on her hips. "What do you want?" "To talk." He glanced around nervously. "Privately." "Privately, my foot," Agatha said. "If you think I'm inviting you inside—" "You already had a break-in," Flint murmured. "What's one more intrusion?" Agatha stiffened. "That was you, wasn't it?" "No," he said sharply, "and that's precisely why I'm here." Before Agatha could bark the next insult, the front door opened. Hodge padded out, tail high, fur gleaming in the mixed sunshine. He paused on the step, assessed Flint, and emitted a low growl that would have terrified anyone with a conscience. Flint stepped back. Charming creature. He can smell nonsense, Agatha said. Hodge strutted to her feet. Agatha scooped him up, holding him in a pose she hoped looked intimidating. It did for a moment, until Hodge yawned theatrically and promptly fell asleep in her arms. Charles Fraith arrived just in time to witness the collapse of her intimidation effort. He parked the borrowed hatchback, climbed out, and raised an eyebrow. "Practicing for maternal portraits, Aggie?" "Oh, shut up," Agatha muttered. Hodge snored softly against her shoulder. Charles eyed Flint. "You again. Shouldn't you be at your office inventing new lies?" "I'm here because I'm frightened," Flint said simply. Bill Wong arrived at that moment, though he'd clearly intended merely to pass by, not join a scene. He stopped at the gate with an expression torn between duty and exasperation. "Agatha, what's going on now?" "This man," Agatha declared, adjusting the sleeping cat, "breaks into my kitchen, leaves a priceless brooch, and then shows up to frighten Doris." "I did not break in," Flint insisted, "but whoever did is trying to make you look guilty. Or me." Bill stepped closer. "Explain." Flint lowered his voice. "Miss Wilberforce stole something from me, something valuable, and unless you want more trouble, we need to work together." Agatha barked a laugh. "I'd rather knit matching cardigans for the WI." Flint ran a hand through his immaculate hair. "She visited me the night before she vanished, accused me of forgery, said she had proof. She threatened to expose me at the exhibition." Agatha's eyes narrowed. "Proof of what exactly?" "That the imitation brooch didn't come from her," Flint said. "Someone swapped it. She believed I knew who." "Do you?" Bill asked quietly. Flint hesitated. Too long. "No," he said finally. "But she was terrified. She said someone had followed her for days. A woman, she thought." Agatha exchanged a quick look with Charles. "A woman?" Flint nodded. "Small, very quick on her feet." "And you didn't think to tell the police this earlier," Bill said. "I didn't want to be dragged back into scandal," Flint replied. "I've worked hard to rebuild my reputation." "Hard?" Agatha scoffed. "You lie as easily as you breathe." Flint's eyes flinched. "Believe what you like, but I didn't break into your cottage. I came today to warn you. Someone wants that brooch. Someone dangerous." Agatha glared. "Then why leave it on my counter?" "I didn't," he said. "I swear it." Agatha wanted to dismiss him, wanted to send him off with a lecture sharp enough to peel paint. But something in his tone, a raw edge she'd not heard before, tugged at her instincts. Bill noticed it too. "You're genuinely scared." "Yes," Flint whispered. "And if Miss Wilberforce is alive, she's in danger. If she's dead, someone wants us looking the wrong way." Charles stepped between Flint and Agatha. "Or you staged the break-in to manipulate her into trusting you." "I didn't," Flint said, voice rising, "and I can prove it. I wasn't anywhere near Castley last night." "Alibi again," Agatha muttered. "Convenient." "Ask my assistant," Flint said. "She was with me doing stock checks." Agatha rolled her eyes. "The terrified girl with bitten nails. She'll say anything you tell her." Flint shook his head. "You really think I'm that powerful? I'm just a man trying not to lose his business." "And possibly your freedom," Agatha added dryly. Hodge snored louder. "May we speak inside?" Flint asked. "I hate being watched." Agatha's eyes narrowed. "By whom?" He flicked his gaze toward the lane. Agatha followed the direction. Someone stood half hidden behind the hedgerow, motionless, watching. She felt her breath tighten. The moment Flint turned to point directly at them, the figure darted backward, disappearing behind the bend. Flint swore under his breath. "They've been following me all morning." Bill sprinted toward the lane, but the figure vanished faster than a good rumor. Flint grabbed his coat. "I'm leaving. I shouldn't have come." "For once we agree," Agatha snapped. Flint hurried down the lane, glancing back every few seconds. The wind buffeted his coat as he disappeared into the village. Agatha exhaled hard. "Well, that was unsettling." Bill walked back slowly, brushing a smear of mud from his shoes. No sign of them. Whoever it was, they were quick. "A woman," Agatha said softly. "Flint said a woman was following Miss Wilberforce." "He also said he didn't argue with her behind the WI hall," Charles reminded her. "His relationship with the truth is flexible." Agatha shifted Hodge, who drooled gently onto her jumper. "Still, something's going on. Someone is moving pieces faster than we can keep up." "We'll keep up," Bill said, "but don't trust Flint." "I don't," Agatha said promptly. "I trust my own instincts, which are superior." Charles snorted. "Your instincts also tell you every attractive man is a murderer." "Not every attractive man," Agatha said sharply. "Just most of them." Bill decided to interrupt before the afternoon devolved. "Agatha, please keep your doors locked. No more interrogating strangers without telling me. No more barreling into danger. And no more—" "Interfering," she said. "You will anyway," Bill sighed. Inside the cottage, Agatha placed Hodge on the sofa. He stretched regally and began washing his paw as if nothing in the world were amiss. Charles wandered toward the kitchen. "Do you have anything edible?" "No," Agatha said. "Not even biscuits?" "Stale ones." "Give me the stale ones." Agatha fished out a tin and tossed it to him. Charles caught it with aristocratic grace, then frowned at the contents. "Is this a biscuit or a weapon?" "Eat it and find out," Agatha said. As Charles crunch-tested the biscuit, Agatha paced. Something inside her felt taut, a string pulled tighter with every clue, every lie, every flicker of fear she saw in the people around her. Miss Wilberforce's disappearance was no longer a puzzle. It was a warning. Someone was trying to scare her. Someone was playing games. Someone had broken into her home and then returned today to watch her cottage. She didn't like games she hadn't initiated. Her landline rang. She snatched it up. "If that's Flint again, I'll—" "Agatha," Bill's voice cut in sharply. "Listen, we've just come from Miss Wilberforce's cottage." Agatha froze. "And?" "We found new footprints," Bill said. "Fresh, small, definitely female." Agatha's heart thumped once hard. "She may be alive," Bill continued, "and she's been back there." Agatha closed her eyes for a moment, Hodge nudging her leg as though sensing the shift in her heartbeat. "Good," she whispered. "Then the game isn't over." "Agatha," Bill added, tone darkening. "These prints were circling the house, watching, waiting." Agatha looked toward the window, a chill sliding beneath her skin despite the warm afternoon sun. Hodge meowed. "Bill," she said quietly, "I think she's been watching here as well." And she was no longer entirely sure whether that thought frightened her or thrilled her. The next morning cracked open sharp and cold, the sort of morning that made Carsley's rooftops shine like iced gingerbread. Agatha Raisin stood at her front window with her second cup of aggressively strong tea, feeling the tightness beneath her ribs again. The world outside looked crisp and well-behaved. Her nerves, however, refused to follow suit. Someone had been circling Miss Wilberforce's cottage. Someone had been watching her own. And someone small, female, and fast was running rings around them. Hodge wandered in, tail high, with the smug air of a creature assured of his place in creation. He hopped onto the table, knocking aside her notebook. Agatha rescued it just before he sat on it with deliberate intention. "Honestly," she muttered, "if you weren't adorable, you'd be a menace." Hodge blinked, unimpressed. She heard a car outside and hurried to the door. Bill, Wong, and Charles Fraith approached, both wrapped in cold-weather jackets, their breath faint in the sharp air. "You look determined," Charles said cautiously. "That worries me." "Good," Agatha said. "You both should worry. We're going back to the WI Hall." Bill sighed, the sigh of a man who knew resistance was pointless. "Why?" "Because I remembered something," Agatha said. "Something important." Charles groaned. "This will be exhausting." "Shut up," Agatha said briskly. "Miss Wilberforce argued with a woman behind the hall that day. Well-dressed, upset. She stormed off. We never found out who she was." "And you think she's connected?" Bill said. "Of course she's connected," Agatha snapped. "People don't argue behind WI halls for their health." Mrs. Bloxby opened her garden gate and walked toward them with her usual gentle calm. She held a thermos and a small paper bag. "I thought you might need these," she said. "Tea and biscuits for the journey." Agatha felt an unwanted pang of gratitude. "You are, as usual, a saint," Mrs. Bloxby smiled. "Hardly, but you looked cold." "We're going back to the hall," Agatha explained. "We need to identify that woman." Mrs. Bloxby tilted her head thoughtfully. "The glamorous one, you mean?" "Yes," Agatha said sharply. "You saw her?" "I did," Mrs. Bloxby said. "That was Harriet Blaine. She owns an antiques shop in Mercester. She and Miss Wilberforce had something of a rivalry." Agatha's mood crackled. "Rivalry? Why didn't anyone mention this?" "It didn't seem relevant until now," Mrs. Bloxby said gently. "Everything is relevant," Agatha insisted, "especially glamorous women with motives. Charles smirked. Careful, your jealousy is showing. It is not jealousy, Agatha snapped. It is investigative insight. Hodge meowed loudly as if disagreeing. The drive to Mercester felt too long for Agatha's liking. The sky was bright but cold, with thin winter sunlight pushing through the clouds. The fields held a silver sheen from frost, and the hedgerows rustled with restless sparrows. Agatha felt invigorated by it, irritated too, because everything invigorated her when a case turned interesting. Harriet Blaine's shop sat on a narrow street near the high road. Its window display glittered with glassware, silver trinkets, and a truly excessive number of Regency brooches. The sign above the door read, Blaine Antiquities, History in Elegant Hands. Agatha hated it immediately. Harriet was behind the counter, tall and glamorous in a way Agatha found personally offensive. She wore a tailored burgundy coat, perfect hair, and a smile sharp enough to slice fruit. She raised an eyebrow when they entered. Well, Harriet drawled, if it isn't Mercester's most chaotic detective agency. We're not an agency, Bill muttered. I'm a detective, Agatha snapped. He's the police. And the handsome one is? Harriet asked, eyes sliding to Charles in a way Agatha found infuriating. Charles smoothed his hair. Agatha saw him do it. Her mood plummeted. We have questions, Agatha said, before Harriet could bat her eyelashes again. About Miss Patience Wilberforce. The glamour drained from Harriet's smile. Not here, she said. Follow me. She led them into a small back room filled with catalogues, velvet cloths, and a kettle that had seen better days. Harriet gestured to the mismatched chairs. Make it quick, she said. I'm busy. Agatha sat, crossing her legs with more force than necessary. You argued with Miss Wilberforce behind the W.I. Hall. Harriet's jaw tightened. We disagreed. That's allowed. About what? Bill asked. A brooch, Harriet said curtly. She suspected she had a genuine Regency piece. I thought she was being ridiculous. She always had delusions of grandeur. Did she show it to you? Agatha asked. No, Harriet said. She was paranoid. Said she'd found the truth. Then she stormed off. What truth? Agatha pressed. Harriet leaned back. She said someone was forging Regency pieces. Someone she trusted. Agatha blinked. Trusted? Yes, Harriet said. A man she trusted. Someone in Carsley. Agatha swallowed. Hard. Who? Who in Carsley did she speak to? She didn't say, Harriet said, but she seemed quite certain of him. Agatha felt a cold ripple move through her. Miss Wilberforce hadn't spoken to any other man in Carsley. Not one. She had spoken to Agatha. Agatha raised her chin stubbornly. She trusted me, not a man. She said, someone in Carsley, Harriet repeated. Bill interjected. Harriet, where were you the night Miss Wilberforce disappeared? Harriet's eyes glinted. At a W.I. subcommittee meeting in Evesham. We debated whether to spend funds on new hymn books or new curtains. 3 people saw me there the entire evening. Boring, but watertight. Agatha scowled. Another alibi. Harriet smirked. You look disappointed. Do you have any proof she was frightened? Bill asked. Harriet nodded toward a stack of letters on a shelf. She sent me a note 2 days before she vanished. Said she had evidence. Said she was going to expose a fraudster. She didn't sign it, but I knew it was her. Why? Agatha asked. She spelled brooch wrong, Harriet said with a shrug. She always did. Charles shifted in his seat, studying a tray of cufflinks displayed on the wall. Harriet followed his eyes and smiled slyly. I sold a pair of those to you once, didn't I? She asked. The Regency cufflinks? Charles's entire posture snapped defensively. They were genuine. They were not, Harriet said sweetly. Sir Lionel made them. He always used the wrong hinge pattern. Agatha gasped in delight. Charles, you bought fakes. I did not, Charles barked. She's lying. Harriet shrugged innocently. Believe who you like. Agatha smiled. I like this part. Shut up, Aggie, Charles muttered. Bill rubbed his temples. Harriet, did Miss Wilberforce say anything else? Anything at all? Harriet hesitated, then sighed. Fine. She said something odd, something rather noble. Agatha leaned closer. What? She said Agatha Raisin is the one person who won't be fooled this time. Agatha froze, her breath caught. Something tightened fiercely behind her ribs. Pride, fear, irritation, she couldn't tell. Charles leaned close. Don't look so triumphant. It's going to your head. It's already there, Harriet murmured. Bill snapped his notebook shut. Thank you. That helps. Harriet raised an eyebrow. Then get out. You're scaring customers. You don't have any customers, Agatha muttered. Harriet smiled. Not ones who matter to you. Agatha stood. If you find anything else, I'll call Bill, Harriet replied. Not you. Agatha bristled. Why? Harriet shrugged. I like him. He's honest. I'm honest, Agatha snapped. You're dramatic, Harriet corrected. I'll take that, Agatha said, marching out. Charles followed, still muttering about cufflinks. Bill paused at the counter. Harriet, please keep your doors locked. If someone is forging pieces, they may target you next. Harriet waved him off. Let them try. I'm harder to fool than Patience was. Bill frowned. That's what worries me. Outside, the air felt colder. The street held a sharp stillness, as if listening. Agatha stopped halfway to the car. She said, a man in Carsley, she whispered. Charles shrugged. Could be nonsense. Miss Wilberforce trusted me, Agatha said. She said it. Bill placed a gentle hand on her arm. She did, but don't take it as a sign you're in danger. I already know I'm in danger, Agatha said. Someone has been watching. Someone broke into my cottage. Someone left that brooch. Someone wants me involved. Or wants you blamed, Charles said. Bill's phone rang. He stepped aside and answered. Agatha watched his face shift, from mild annoyance to focus to something darker. He returned slowly. Agatha crossed her arms. Well, spit it out. Bill exhaled. They found something near the river. Agatha's stomach tightened. What? Bill met her eyes. Miss Wilberforce's car key. In the reeds. Fresh, not rusted. Agatha swallowed. Someone put it there recently, Bill said, meaning someone has gone back to the river. Agatha felt Hodge's absence like a tug. She wished she'd brought him. He always sensed threats before she did. Bill, she whispered, this is getting worse. Yes, he said quietly, and I think we're running out of time. Agatha squared her shoulders against the cold. The morning sky brightened uselessly, as if pretending things were ordinary. They weren't. Not anymore. Miss Wilberforce had left a trail, and now the river had lost its secrets. But only for a moment. Drizzle drifted over Carsley the next morning, a fine mist that softened the hedgerows and left the lanes shining like polished stone. It wasn't gloomy rain, just light, lingering moisture that clung to the air as though reluctant to leave. Agatha Raisin stood at her cottage door with a mug of hot tea, glaring at the drizzle as if she could intimidate it into stopping. Hodge nudged her ankle, unimpressed by the weather or her mood. He wanted breakfast, warmth, and attention, in that order. Agatha obliged him, muttering about how she'd become a servant to a creature who contributed nothing except judgment. By the time Bill Wong and Charles Fraith arrived, the drizzle had thinned and the sky had brightened into a pearly morning, washed clean but still unsettled. Agatha ushered them inside with the energy of a woman possessed. Right, she said. We go over everything again. All of it. Charles groaned. We've been over everything 5 times already. And we'll go over it 50 times, Agatha snapped, until we understand precisely what Miss Wilberforce found. Bill set his notepad on the table. Let's start with the brooches again. The forgery at the cottage, the real one in your kitchen. Agatha tapped her finger against the rim of her mug. Yes, 2 brooches, 2 intentions, 1 switch. Mrs. Bloxby arrived moments later, quietly letting herself in and carrying a thermos. She poured tea with gentle efficiency and settled at the table. Sometimes, she said softly, we miss what's right in front of us. People often hide what they fear to lose. Agatha frowned at her. Meaning what? Mrs. Bloxby pointed at the smashed photograph on the table. May I see that again? Agatha obliged. The cracked frame revealed Sir Lionel and Miss Wilberforce smiling stiffly, though now only Sir Lionel's face was intact. The glass had shattered in a way that shielded him, but sliced across Miss Wilberforce's image. Agatha froze. Someone tried to remove her from this photo, she whispered. Not him. Bill nodded slowly. Someone didn't want her face recognizable. Because she'd seen them, Agatha realized, or recognized something. Charles leaned back. So the smashed photo wasn't an accident. Nothing about this has been an accident, Agatha said. Nothing. Bill flipped through his notes. We know Miss Wilberforce had the real brooch. Someone swapped it with a forgery. That someone panicked when she found out. That someone is still out there. But who? Agatha demanded. Flint is an obvious candidate, but there's a woman in this. The small figure following people. The footprints at her cottage. Flint could have hired her, Charles suggested. Flint can barely manage his own hair, Agatha said dryly. He isn't capable of organizing a conspiracy. Bill coughed. He did forge valuations. Fine, Agatha conceded. He's capable of some conspiracy. Mrs. Blocksby sipped her tea. Perhaps the woman is acting independently. Brilliant, Agatha muttered. Now we have two villains. Possibly, Mrs. Blocksby said gently, but perhaps only one, and she may be protecting something. Agatha rubbed her forehead. Everything is spiralling. Then let's follow the only concrete lead, Bill said. Flint's assistant just left me a message. He hasn't come into work, no calls, no excuses. So he's vanished, Agatha said. Guilty. Or frightened, Mrs. Blocksby added. Agatha grimaced. She hated nuance before breakfast. Flint's office in Mercester felt different without him, less smug, more abandoned. His assistant, Clara, wrung her hands behind the desk, looking as if she hadn't slept. I'm glad you came, she whispered. Mr. Flint, he was scared yesterday. Truly scared. What did he say? Agatha demanded. Clara hesitated, then opened a drawer and pulled out a key. This is for his storage unit, she said. He told me to give it to the police if anything happened to him. When did he say that? Bill asked. Yesterday morning, Clara replied. After that woman called. Agatha tensed. What woman? I don't know, Clara said. She didn't give a name, but she sounded angry. Very angry. Small voice, Agatha pressed. Yes, Clara whispered. Sharp. Quick. Like she didn't have time to breathe. Agatha looked at Bill. The woman at the cottages. Bill nodded grimly. The storage facility sat on the outskirts of Mercester, rows of identical metal units, the sort of place that looked innocent until you imagined all the terrible things that might lurk behind each locked door. Agatha shivered, partly from the cold, partly from excitement. Bill unlocked the unit. The metal door rattled upward, revealing a cramped space filled with boxes, crates, and one battered filing cabinet. Right, Agatha said. Let's find the damning evidence. Charles pointed at a large box first. Ladies ahead. Agatha elbowed him and opened the box. She gasped. Inside lay Miss Wilberforce's handbag, neat, organized, perfectly intact, as though abandoned, not stolen. Why hide this? Agatha whispered. Because it contained something important, Charles said. Check the pockets. Bill gently opened the bag. Inside were 2 valuation receipts, a small leather notebook, a torn envelope, a map. Agatha snatched the map and unfolded it. Her heart jolted. It was a map of Carsley, her cottage circled in red. Oh, that's just wonderful, Agatha muttered. I've become a magnet for missing women and idiotic men. Mrs. Blocksby touched her arm. Calm, Agatha. I refuse to be calm, Agatha retorted. Someone circled my cottage, someone broke into my kitchen, someone wants me involved. Or blamed, Bill said quietly. Agatha inhaled sharply. We're going in circles. One more circle, Charles said, pointing to another crate. Inside were several folders. Bill opened the first and immediately stiffened. These are receipts, he said, forgery materials, tools, payment logs. Flint's personal collection, Agatha murmured. He was forging pieces. Or storing them for someone else, Mrs. Blocksby said softly. Agatha ignored that. And he swapped the brooch. He must have. Then where is he? Bill asked. Running, Agatha said. But from whom? Charles lifted a lid from a smaller crate. Inside lay more papers and something dark. What's that? Agatha asked. Bill lifted it. A jacket. Miss Wilberforce's jacket. Agatha felt her heartbeat quicken. Where's the rest? They searched every inch of the unit, boxes, files, drawers, corners. No body. No sign of Miss Wilberforce herself. Just her things abandoned in a cold metal room. She's alive, Agatha whispered. She must be. Well, someone wants us to think so, Charles said gently. Agatha ignored him. She left clues. She trusted me. She said I wouldn't be fooled this time. Bill placed the jacket into an evidence bag. We'll do a full forensic sweep, but, Agatha, this is serious. It's always serious, she snapped. But this time, she didn't finish. The afternoon light dimmed as clouds thickened overhead, not heavy enough for proper rain, just dense enough to make everything feel smaller, closer. Agatha stepped back from the unit, staring at the red circle around her cottage. Someone's been planning something, she whispered, and I've walked right into it. They returned to Carsley with more questions than answers. Agatha paced the cottage restlessly. Hodge followed her with bored fascination, watching her with the same expression he used when observing mice on television. Charles opened a window to let in fresh air. You're going to wear a hole in the carpet. Let me wear one, Agatha snapped. It'll give me something to focus on. Bill sat at the table, reading the notebook from Miss Wilberforce's handbag. Her notes are vague, mentions the second brooch, mentions danger, but she never names the culprit. Typical, Agatha muttered. The one time I need someone to be verbose. Mrs. Bloxby poured tea with calm efficiency. You'll make progress, she said. You always do. Agatha sat finally, rubbing her forehead. Why did she circle my cottage? Why trust me? Mrs. Bloxby smiled softly. Because you care, even when you pretend you don't. Agatha bristled. I don't care, The doorbell rang. Hodge hissed, fur bristling. Agatha froze. She looked at Bill and Charles. They stood instantly. Agatha approached the door slowly. She opened it. Gregory Flint stood on her doorstep, pale, sweating and terrified. Agatha, he gasped, I know where Miss Wilberforce is. Agatha grabbed his arm. Where? He shook his head frantically. Not here. Not with them. I need you. Alone. I'll only tell you. Charles surged forward. Like hell. No, Charles, Flint said, voice trembling. She's in danger. Agatha is the only one she trusted, the only one who can help. Agatha felt the cold air push against her back. Where is she? She whispered. Flint's eyes glinted with fear. Come with me, he said, and I'll prove it. Agatha glanced at Bill, at Charles, at Mrs. Bloxby, at Hodge, watching with unnerving feline suspicion. Her heart thudded. She stepped onto the path. All right, she said quietly. Show me. The wind whipped across the Mercester outskirts with a wild, restless edge that made Agatha Raisin reconsider every decision she'd made that morning. The abandoned quarry yawned ahead, a jagged mouth of grey stone, gorse bushes, and old machinery long surrendered to rust. A sensible woman would have stayed home with Hodge, a plate of toast, and a locked door. But Agatha, being defiantly not sensible, marched across the gravel with her chin high and her coat flapping like a disgruntled flag. Gregory Flint waited near the ridge, pale and pacing. He looked like a man who regretted every choice in life, including the tie he'd chosen. A weak sun flickered between clouds, lighting his anxious profile. About time, he muttered as Agatha approached. If you're going to insult me, Agatha said, breathless, do it properly. You look like a damp envelope. Flint flinched. I didn't come here to argue. Good, Agatha shot back, because I have a long list of arguments and only one of me. The wind roared again, tugging at her hair. She wished she'd brought a scarf. She wished she'd brought Charles and Bill. She wished she'd brought common sense, but she'd left that behind years ago, somewhere between London PR firms and the day she bought her cottage in Carsley. Where is Miss Wilberforce? Agatha demanded. You dragged me out here. Start talking. Flint swallowed hard. She's alive. Agatha froze. Prove it. Only if you listen. Properly. Flint, Agatha snapped. I haven't listened properly since 1987, but make your attempt. He ran a trembling hand through his hair. She uncovered my forgery network. Agatha opened her mouth to deliver a scathing remark, but shut it again. She'd known it, but hearing him confess tightened her chest. She swapped the fake brooch, Flint continued. The forgery you found was mine, but she replaced it with the real one so she could expose me safely. So you confronted her? Agatha asked. Behind the WI hall? Flint winced. I confronted her, yes. She said she had evidence, photographs, receipts, names. She wouldn't listen when I begged her to let me fix it. She stormed off. And you expect me to believe you let her go? Agatha snapped. Yes, Flint whispered. Because she wasn't planning to go home. She arranged to hide. Agatha narrowed her eyes. With whom? Flint opened his mouth. A woman's laugh cut through the wind, sharp, cold, and amused. Agatha turned. Harriet Blaine stepped from behind a cluster of boulders, trench coat whipping around her legs, hair immaculate despite the gale. She held a gun with casual elegance, as if it were a prop for a particularly fashionable photo shoot. "Oh, Agatha," Harriet said, voice dripping with superiority, "you do wander into messes so easily." Agatha blinked. "You? But you said—" "I said I suspected Miss Wilberforce," Harriet interrupted. "I never said I wasn't involved," Agatha pointed accusingly. "Your shoes are hideous." Harriet's eyes flashed. "Excuse me?" "Those heels," Agatha said louder. "No arch support. Wrong shade for winter. And they squeak." "They do not squeak," Harriet snapped, momentarily lowering the gun to look at her shoe. Flint whimpered. Agatha rolled her eyes. "Men," she muttered, "useless in all crises." Harriet regained composure and levelled the gun again. "I'm afraid you've reached the end of your little investigation." "Really?" Agatha said. "Because I don't feel remotely finished." Harriet smirked. "You will be." Agatha felt her pulse roar in her ears. She glanced behind Harriet, scanning for a figure, a movement, anything. Nothing. "Why?" Agatha asked. "Why all this?" Harriet shrugged. "The real Regency brooch is worth a fortune abroad. Flint's forgery racket was sloppy. Miss Wilberforce had the good sense to spot the difference. She wanted to expose him, and that threatened my deal." "So, you plan to steal the brooch," Agatha said slowly. "Frame Flint, and sell it overseas." Harriet's lips curled. "Finally, you demonstrate some intelligence." Agatha lunged forward to grab Flint's arm, or at least use him as a shield, but Harriet raised the gun sharply. "Don't move." Agatha froze. "Where is Miss Wilberforce?" Agatha demanded. Harriet smiled, slow and triumphant. "Very close, and very frightened, but she won't be a problem after today." Agatha felt sick. "You monster." "Please," Harriet scoffed, "I prefer entrepreneurial." The wind howled again, sending pebbles skittering across the dirt. And then, a sound. A car door slamming. Harriet whipped around. Agatha's heart soared. Charles's ridiculous convertible jerked into view on the ridge. Bill leapt from the passenger seat, shouting Agatha's name. "Told you she'd do something idiotic," Charles yelled above the wind. "Shut it," Agatha shouted back. Harriet raised the gun again, pointing wildly. "Stay back." Charles froze. Bill raised his hands. "Harriet, put the gun down. You won't make it out if you fire." Harriet laughed. "Oh, detective, I don't need to fire. I only need a hostage." She grabbed Agatha's arm. Agatha yelped. "Watch the coat. It's dry clean only." "Shut up," Harriet hissed. At that moment, a new sound erupted. A furious, unholy yowl. The sound of a creature deeply offended by the state of the world. A black blur launched from the back seat of Charles's convertible. "Hodge!" Agatha shrieked. The cat flew, absolutely flew, at Harriet's head. Harriet screamed, stumbling back, gun arm flailing. Flint ducked. Agatha dropped to her knees. Bill charged forward. Charles swore loudly. Hodge sank his claws into Harriet's hair with the righteous fury of a small panther wronged. "Get it off! Get it off!" Harriet screeched. Agatha scrambled forward. "Don't you dare call my cat it, you criminal tart!" Harriet flailed, losing grip of the gun. Bill kicked it away and tackled her to the ground. Charles joined him, pinning her arms. Hodge landed triumphantly on a patch of grass, tail puffed, pupils enormous. "Good boy," Agatha cried, scooping him up before he changed his mind about heroism. Bill hauled Harriet upright, panting. "You're under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy, and several other things I'll enjoy listing later." Harriet hissed something impolite as Charles secured her wrists. Flint slumped against a rock. "I told you I didn't hurt her," he murmured. "I tried to stop all this." Agatha ignored him. "Where is Miss Wilberforce?" A soft voice answered. "Here." They all turned. From a shabby shepherd's hut nestled behind a scrub of brambles, Miss Wilberforce stepped into the open. She looked pale, exhausted, and very much relieved. "Bill," she whispered, "I heard shouting. I thought—" "You're safe now," Bill assured her gently. Agatha rushed to her, still holding Hodge like a furry trophy. "Where have you been? Are you hurt? Why didn't you call? And why didn't you tell me I was involved in this wretched thing?" Miss Wilberforce smiled weakly. "I tried. I left clues. You were the only one I trusted." Agatha froze. Charles stared at her, astonished. Bill raised an eyebrow. Agatha flushed an alarming shade of pink. "Well," she said brusquely, "obviously. I'm very trustworthy." "She means well," Charles muttered. "Shut up, Charles." By the time the police backup arrived and Harriet was taken away, the wind had softened. It no longer howled. It merely whistled through the quarry like a tune remembered from childhood. Bill escorted Miss Wilberforce to the car. Charles wrapped an arm around Agatha's shoulders. "Never meet villains alone," he said. "It's exhausting for the rest of us." "I wasn't alone," Agatha sniffed. "I had Hodge." Hodge blinked at Charles, unimpressed. "He's a menace," Charles said. "He's a hero," Agatha corrected, hugging the cat tighter. As they walked back toward the convertible, Agatha allowed herself a long exhale. The sky was clearing, sun slicing through cloud edges in sharp beams. "You did well today," Charles said quietly. Agatha straightened. "Of course I did. I always do." But a tiny smile tugged at her mouth. That evening, Carsley hummed with the promise of gossip. Curtains twitched, neighbours lingered near hedges. The Red Lion filled early. The WI hall lights flickered like an omen. Agatha sat at her kitchen table sipping tea. Hodge stretched across her lap like a smug king. Charles had gone home. Bill had promised to return with updates. Mrs. Bloxby had left a plate of scones, insisting she eat something. Agatha stroked Hodge's fur, her expression hard to decipher. "Well," she murmured, "that was almost dignified." Hodge purred. Agatha allowed herself a small private smile. "I wasn't fooled this time," she whispered. And just for a moment, she felt proud. Not loud, boastful pride, but the quiet kind, edged with something almost tender. Then she lit a cigarette and ruined the moment entirely. The afternoon settled warm and gentle over Carsley, a soft breeze stirring the hedgerows as if reminding the village to behave itself. Agatha Raisin doubted that would ever happen. Carsley could find drama in a misaligned doormat. And with Miss Wilberforce's rescue already leaking through back fences and over cake tins, the gossip mills were grinding at an heroic pace. Agatha walked down the lane toward the vicarage, chin lifted in an attempt to look composed. Inside, she felt oddly exposed. Praise made her flustered. Trust made her worse. The WI hall gleamed in the sun, as if mocking her memory of glue gun humiliation. Mrs. Bloxby waited in the garden with a tray of tea. Her calm presence was a balm, though Agatha would sooner drink dishwater than admit it. "Thank you for coming, Mrs. Raisin," Mrs. Bloxby said, pouring tea with her usual serenity. Agatha sniffed. "Some of us are still recovering from chasing criminals across the Cotswolds." "And doing it rather bravely," Mrs. Bloxby added. Agatha felt her cheeks warm. She quickly scowled to counter the effect. "Well, someone had to sort it out. The police can't be everywhere." Mrs. Bloxby gave her a gentle look. "Miss Wilberforce wanted me to thank you personally. She said you were the only one she trusted to understand her fear." Agatha nearly dropped the teacup. "Fear? She hardly struck me as the type." "Courage isn't loud," Mrs. Bloxby said. "Sometimes it looks like panic. She came to you because she didn't want another public embarrassment. It mattered more to her than the brooch." Agatha stared at the roses, suddenly aware of a knot forming in her throat. She disguised it with a harumph. "People should really stop trusting me. It's a terrible habit." Mrs. Bloxby's smile deepened. "And yet they do." Before Agatha could escape the conversation, Bill Wong approached through the garden gate, hands tucked in his jacket pockets. He looked relaxed for once and faintly amused. "Afternoon, ladies," he said. "Thought I'd check in before Charles drags you off somewhere glamorous." "Charles is incapable of glamour," Agatha said briskly. "He just lounges and drinks." "He also asked if you were free," Bill replied. Terrace, wine, smug expression, his words. Agatha made a show of rolling her eyes, though her stomach fluttered treacherously. "I suppose someone should keep him company before he drowns in his own charm." Bill chuckled. "You did good work, Agatha, even if you terrified half the county while doing it." "Nonsense," Agatha sniffed. "3/4 at most." They walked together toward Lilac Lane, where Charles's cottage overlooked the rolling fields. Sunlight softened the view, giving Carsley a gentle, forgiving glow. Charles met them at the gate, waving a bottle of chilled white wine with all the enthusiasm of a man who had no intention of being productive. "Agatha, darling," he called, "you look halfway respectable. It's unnerving." "Shut up, Charles," she said, brushing past him. But she accepted the wine and the seat, and the faint warmth of companionship she would deny to her dying breath. Hodge leapt into her lap the moment she settled, curling himself with regal entitlement. Charles raised an eyebrow. "He's very attached," he said. "He recognizes quality," Agatha replied. Bill stayed a while, teasing Agatha about her reckless quarry adventure until she threatened to pour wine on him. Charles laughed so hard he nearly dropped the bottle. When Bill left, the terrace fell into a comfortable quiet, the sort Agatha always claimed she hated but secretly craved. "So," Charles said, swirling his glass, "heroine of the hour. How does it feel?" Agatha sipped her wine, watching the fields sway in the breeze. "Exhausting," she muttered. "People expect things." "Only because you deliver." Agatha shifted, uncomfortable. Praise made her prickly. Wine helped. "Flint is turning witness," Charles added. "Harriet's facing an impressive list of charges. Miss Wilberforce's brooch is back with its rightful estate."